Electric scooters offer a unique alternative to your everyday commute, and they also make for fun, memorable experiences. The Inmotion S1 electric scooter offers an all-in-one package and promises to give you everything you need in one electric scooter. I'm James Hertz from MUO, and we're going to talk about the Inmotion S1 and whether it should be your first stop for an electric scooter. Now, before jumping into the S1 electric scooter, I do want to acknowledge that this is an upgrade from Inmotion's L9 scooter. It features a dual shock absorption system now, as well as better battery life. And since it does have a rear wheel drive design, it does have better climbing in both a stability and power standpoint. Now, to start with, I do want to touch a little bit on setup, as well as an important note that you need to take away from setup. First off, there is some very succinct instructions on how to set up the S1 scooter out of the box. They're pretty detailed, so if you are new to electric scooters, I would advise taking time to look over the diagrams and familiarize yourself with all of the parts, because it is very guided, but you can miss something if you're not paying close attention. Now, there is one specific takeaway from the setup instructions that I do want to mention, specifically from a safety standpoint. Now, with the mast of the scooter, I would find it would go off in terms of alignment relative to the front suspension over time. Now, this was due to the gland screw that you originally tightened during the setup process just above the folding parts. Now, what I typically would do is before taking a ride, I would make sure the alignment was correct by putting the front wheel between my feet and checking that it was straight. If not, I would simply lower the mast and tighten that gland screw within. Now, this is more of a user error, and you have to keep in account if you do manage to get the gland screw tight enough, you won't run into this. But I was not able to experience that exact tightness using the included Allen wrench. So it is something you do want to keep in mind when actually setting up the S1 scooter. Now, from this point, I want to talk about the S1's technical specifications. First off, it is a larger electric scooter, so talking about size and weight become important. First off, in terms of an unfolded size, it's around 49.8 by 21.3 by 21.2 inches. And when it's actually folded up, it's 49.8 by 48 by 21.2 inches. Now, other things about it is it's fairly heavy. It's around 53 pounds, so if you are carrying it, you're going to need to keep that into account. Now, one thing I do like about it is that there is a larger deck size. It's 188 millimeters wide, and it's 135 millimeters long alongside the rubberized anti-slip deck. So you can really get some good foot spacing on it. Now, another thing about it is it does have a good payload, so if you're around 300 pounds, it'll have no issue carrying you. In terms of its max speed, it hits around 18.6 miles per hour, and its motor can hit an output power of 500 watts typically, with a peak power of 1,000 watts. Now, I also want to mention the actual range of the scooter because it does boast a large one, at least technically. Now, specifically with the S1 scooter, if you look at what it boasts as its range, it says it can hit 56 miles. Now, with those 56 miles, it's under very set and stable conditions, which probably aren't realistic for most people. You'd have to be at max power on the scooter with a 165-pound individual going at around 11 miles per hour on a completely flat surface. And again, this is just full power. So, overall, what you're going to get more realistically is around 30 miles per average commuter trip. Overall, I found this to be pretty consistent across my different rides. So again, you're going to need to weigh in different variables will shorten this, with the eco mode on the scooter giving it the longest battery life, whereas if you boost it up or you're handling things like hills, then you're going to shorten that overall trip length. Now, with the S1 scooter, Inmotion also allows pairing via app. First off, you can activate your scooter via it, as well as control a variety of settings. Now, it will do very immediate responsive things such as changing the speed of your scooter, as well as turning the headlights on and off, as well as allowing you to lock it. This is all done via a Bluetooth connection. Now, there are some other things that are more specialized that you want to pay attention to. First off, it does allow you to diagnose any possible issues that may be occurring with your scooter, as well as set up any firmware upgrades. And there is also the option to set a speed limiter on it so you're not hitting that max speed on the scooter. Now, a note on this, even if you do enable it via the app, you can obviously bypass it by controlling the speed on the actual scooter itself. There is also the option to activate cruise control, which is once you hit a consistent speed, you'll hear a beep on the scooter and it will automatically lock in at that speed. And there is also the option to activate assisted brakes when going downhill. So if you're going down really fast, the electronic rear brakes will help you out. Overall, I found Inmotion S1 app to be a nice addition, but you may not be going back and forth to it super frequently. A lot of it's just based on how much you want to tweak via it, and if you're wanting to potentially check out things like ride stats, you can also take advantage of that. So I want to talk about some of the features that supplement your riding experience with the S1 electric scooter. First off, there is 10-inch tubeless pneumatic tires, so you have good grip on the road. Now there also is that mentioned front and rear dual shock absorption system, so you can go over small bumps with pretty much no problem at all. Also, there is 2 different brake types. Now there is front drum brakes, which don't require much maintenance and have a good response time, as well as allow you to slow down pretty easily, as well as the rear electronic brakes. Now, I do want to touch on those rear electric brakes if you're using that downhill feature where they'll kick in automatically. Now, I do appreciate that they are an additional safety feature, but if you're not really prepared for them, they can feel a little jerkish. But overall, if you're not really the type to respond to it with surprise, you'll find it to be a pretty natural process. Overall, I do like that there are a variety of features that help the riding experience, and I think there are a lot of the crucial ones you're going to want with an electric scooter. So I do want to talk about the actual display on the S1 scooter, as well as the supplemental lighting you get with it. Now, first off, I do want to mention what's exactly on the display. It will show your current battery life, what driving mode you're in, your speed, as well as if a turn signal has been engaged. You can simply tap the button twice to swap between different driving modes, and you can tap it once to turn your headlights on and off. Now, in terms of lights that you get with the S1 scooter, there are 2 ones to pay attention to. First off, there are just the decorative lights at the side of it, as well as lights that will turn on and off as you shift left and right. There is also a rear brake light, so as you are hitting your brake, you're going to have people behind you aware of what you're doing. And on top of that rear brake light, there are also the 1.25 watt front lights that will support you during night driving, as well as if you're just driving at twilight. It's pretty bright, so if you are needing to drive at a later part for your commute, you can take advantage of these. Now, I want to start talking about the riding experience with the S1 scooter, and the best place to start there is its driving modes. Now, there is the Eco or power saving mode, which is typically used for beginners, which allows you to hit a max speed of 9.3 miles per hour. Now, there is also the D or standard mode, which hits a max of 14.8 miles per hour, and that's typically what you're going to use if you're commuting or just using the scooter regularly. Now, for more advanced users, there is also an S or sport mode, which allows you to hit the max of 18.6 miles per hour. Now, with the S1 electric scooter, it's very easy to swap between these modes as needed with simply a double tap of the button on the display screen. Overall, you can really go with what you find best for you, and if you're a beginner, obviously you would go with the Eco mode, and more advanced users can adjust as needed for their ideal speed. Now, with this in mind, I do want to go in more depth about the actual riding experience. Now, this is meant more for pavement and asphalt, so if you're doing riding in a more suburban or more metro area, this scooter is definitely more for you. Overall, I did my testing in a more rural area, but I did have some actual parks as well as some paved driveways to actually work with. But if you're trying to do anything off-road with it, it's not going to support that. Now, I do want to mention, to actually get the scooter started, you're going to have to at least get it to a speed of 3 kilometers an hour before the motor will kick in. Overall, I found it to be a very smooth ride, and it handled any bumps along the way pretty well, which is pretty common around here since it's more of a rural area and the roads aren't super even. Overall, you're going to want to keep in mind more of the standard scooter safety rules. You're not going to want to go in puddles directly and you're going to want to ride around different obstacles. But overall, the S1 electric scooter does offer an advantage. Now, I do want to segue in and mention that I have seen more of the Metro city scooters that you can rent around different parts of my state, and specifically those don't have the size that the S1 scooter has. The actual riding decks are much smaller, but there is some trade-off with the S1 scooter's size. Now, a common complaint or consideration about it would be that the handlebars are not adjustable and they're a bit on the taller side. Well, it's not an issue for someone of my height. Someone who's around 5'5" or smaller is going to have to reach up more with the scooter. So again, you do want to keep in mind the actual size of the scooter when you're riding it. Now, with the S1 electric scooter, it also promises to handle a max slope of 30%. Now, when taking it to a park where slopes were of varying ranges, somewhere between around 15% to something like 40%, we did find that 30% was an accurate one. But you're going to want to keep in mind that you're going to need more momentum depending on how steep that slope is, as well as adequate battery charge. But in terms of that promise, the S1 did deliver. Now, with the Inmotion S1 electric scooter, it is more of a commuter scooter, but there are some things you're going to want to keep in mind. Now, during testing, when I was transporting it, it would fit in the backseat of my car or in my trunk, but it did take up considerable real estate when still folded up. Now, in terms of actually carrying it, I could carry it with one arm for short distances, but if I was doing something like stairs, either up or down, I did prefer to carry it via the mast via two hands. Overall, it allowed me to transport it more safely. Overall, it is a bigger scooter and that brings some advantages, but if you're going to have to transport it versus directly commute from your home with it, you'll want to keep these things in mind. Now, I do want to talk about battery life as well as charging the S1 scooter. Now, it does have a battery capacity of 675 watt hours. Now, in terms of actual standard charge time, if you do have one charger, it takes around 7 hours. Now, if you do have dual chargers plugged into the dual ports, it takes around 3.5 to around 4 hours. Now, in terms of this, why does this matter? If you're going to be using this for your everyday commute, you're going to be eating up a good portion of your day charging the scooter if you have a longer round trip. So you may want to consider purchasing a separate charger from Inmotion. Now, in terms of the charging process, there was one frustration I ran into over and over again with Inmotion's S1 scooter. Now, it features two rubber covers for the charging ports, and these are really tight, so getting them to adequately fit into the slots and tightly secure was more of a process. Typically, to do so, I would have to fit them almost perfectly and then push in the rubber and tuck it in to actually get it sealed. It was more of a frustration because if you typically don't have the scooter in something like your lap, it's a little awkward to get that kind of angle so you can get them neatly secured. But otherwise, once they are closed off, I really had no issue with things getting inside there or otherwise compromising the ports. So the question is, should you purchase Inmotion's S1 electric scooter? Now, what I will say here is, if you're a larger individual looking for a scooter that will carry you uphill as well as take you a fair distance, then the S1 scooter does that excellently. But if you're a smaller rider, then the S1 electric scooter might be a bit too big for your everyday rides. Overall, what I did find is many of what it offers are really great for an average scooter rider, but if you're looking for something faster, obviously you're not going to go with this scooter. It has a variety of features, and these allow you to do things like climb slopes and get more of a well-rounded experience, but you're going to have some trade-offs in terms of it. There are great things like the turn signals, as well as other safety features that allow you as a beginner to feel more confident when riding, and those are great about the S1 scooter. So you're going to need to weigh exactly how you want to ride and whether the S1 electric scooter aligns with that. A big thanks to Inmotion for providing the S1 electric scooter testing unit. And for everyone watching, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. And if you want to read our in-depth written review of the S1 electric scooter, head over to makeuseof.com.